Bry Guy here with another Pixels Refreshed. Today we're going to be looking at one of my all-time favorites, Legend of Mana. So they just re-released this game on the Switch. It was originally a PS1 game, and they did some things to remaster its visuals. I'm curious what they changed and whether or not I would consider some of these things improvements or not. Square's kind of had a rough history lately, so I'm kind of curious to see what they did. So anyways, let's go take a look. So this is the original version first. I thought I'd give this a go, check to see what the original looked like before we check what they updated in the new release. Cool. So, I mean, obviously these cutscenes are pretty compressed. I'm curious what happens when we pick a new game. So, looks like it's doing... I mean, the base resolution's pretty low. It's probably... Oh, maybe we could find out. But... I guess this would be 320. 320 by 160. Be my guess. It might be higher. Okay. So let's just pick two-hand sword. And let's start the game. It's fine. Nice pixel art menus. You have to select your part of the world in this game. Yeah, the first one's fine. Okay. And this is its day system. So all of this, I mean, this looks like, it's kind of interesting because the map here is not pixel art, but it looks to be, and it's because the texture is so resolution. But it's just a 3D model with a really low-res texture on it and no texture filtering. Some 2D and 3D particles mixed. Really cute animation there. Alright, so we have this little house here. Let's go check this out and see what it looks like. Can you skip it? Yeah. Okay. I like the little rabbit animations. They did a good job with the Trials of Mana adding in that. It's kind of interesting that Square's been struggling so much recently with their new re-releases of the Final Fantasy games because they used to be such masters of pixel art. It's interesting. The tree looks higher resolution than the text, but it's actually not. The pixels are identical in size. It's because of all the gradation in colors. So that was a big difference with going from Super Nintendo to PlayStation 1 is there wasn't really the same color limitations that there were historically. So they could have as many colors as they could draw into a lot of the assets. So that tree looks like it has, you know, full blends and gradations from blue to green in there. Cool. So, this is kind of like, I remember this in these scenes, but you have this kind of look that gives a feel like maybe King's Quest VII or something, different from the tile-based look that you got in Secret of Mana or Second Densetsu or Sword of Mana slash... Sorry, or Trials of Mana or Second Densetsu 3. So you have kind of this more perspective drawn environment where they have a little bit of perspective drawn in. You can see like the perspective going to the background here. Obviously what happens with that is it's a bit weird from certain angles where it's like drawn to look good from one spot and doesn't necessarily carry perfectly. So anyways, overall so far really like the aesthetic. It seems unified. Clearly there's more gradients and stuff in the environment than there are in the characters. The characters have more true kind of traditional limitations, although they're not very limited in animation. Looks like maybe 10 frames per second, not for the camera panning, but for the sprites, the animated sprites, how much they were drawn. Portraits are well detailed. Okay. I thought we could find the big tree. Let's see if we can find the big tree. Might be able to do that right away. Okay, so square. Let's grab the artifact. And let's put it here. Let's go check out this area. And then we'll switch over to the new re-release. Cool. I wrote this down. Little animations in the sign, lots of sprites on screen at once. It's a nice little cape animation there, just little things to help make the scene come to life. Overall, I don't know. I love how they do this trick in animation all the time, but they have this forced perspective, so when you get to the top of the screen, the perspective is really forced. I wonder where if we get over here. Okay. Really nice. I don't know. I mean, the environment, it's hard to know whether it's being forced into pixel art, whether it wants to be or not. The characters are clearly pixel art, but they don't seem like a mismatch for each other because obviously everything is ultimately in the same resolution, but there's just far more color gradation in the background than there is in the characters, and that's the one thing that differentiates them quite a bit. Okay, so that's enough for this. Let's go switch over to the new re-release and see how that one looks. Let's boot this up. Nice. Cute little animation there. Oh, did I skip that past that in the beginning, or did they have more loading to accommodate for as they transfer the game into RAM? Okay, it looks like they either AI upscaled this or there's no way that they had the original files. Maybe there's just a new animation outright. Yeah, it doesn't really match the aesthetic of the original, so it's got to be a new animation that they added just for this version. Cool. I wonder if they changed any of the other ones in the game. Okay, so here we go. Obviously, they up-resed that base Legend of Mana and Tree asset, but they kept the icon here the same for choosing. And this is where you get kind of weird things. You get something I'm not as big of a fan of, which is like pixel mismatches between assets. So yeah, you see it here. We have like a detailed background, and now we have pixel art assets, and they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Okay. Let's pick this one here. Oh, my controller is drifting or something. Or I'm actually, one second. One of my other controllers is on somewhere. Let's just do this real quick. Okay. Alright. So, 200. Oh, what is going on here? Okay. Good stuff. Okay, so right away, I don't know, I'm not as big of a fan of the high resolution assets. We're getting some kind of like art mismatch. It looks nice when it's just on a screen like this, but it doesn't look as nice when you have kind of a mixture of pixel art and non-pixel art aspects. Oh, they redid, looks like they redid all of the little icons down here because everything seems to be at a much higher resolution than it was initially. Okay, so they kept the same base animations for those assets there. It looks like they didn't change those, and they didn't change the characters. Let's see what else they changed. Interesting. I think these are reimagined because I don't remember them being like this. I'm curious if the art quality is lower Okay, let's get into the game. Yeah, and this is weird to me. I think I'm a bigger fan of the more pixel art versions of these assets than what I'm seeing here. I'm curious when we get into the game itself whether the mismatch is just more jarring. Get this. I mean, this is a hard thing to approach when you're making a remake. It's like, to me, this is very jarring. I prefer the aesthetic of the original. I think there's two things that are happening. The redrawings here are kind of revealing flaws in the art, or it's like the standard of painting doesn't feel like as good as it was, even with the original scans if they do. It's like this bed is looking a little bit mushy with its overall presentation. Very static, and like this is just sticking out like a sore thumb. Now we have like aspects of the game that don't feel consistent with the world. Same over here. I feel like if you were going to go to this length, you had to redo the characters too. I don't think you can just do the backgrounds and not the characters to match, even though I prefer the pixel art look overall. I would have been happier with just a widescreen release with maybe more of a pixel art feel for the background. That would have fit more naturally for the world, especially because the Mana series didn't really transition to 3D all that well. I mean, the recent Trials was pretty decent, but Dawn of Mana and everything else that they tried to do with 3D was not as well received, where the development team on it were masters of pixel art. So I don't know, I would have preferred to see the pixel art preserved. It's also the level of painting. It doesn't look as natural in areas like this. There's something about the original one that even though it was pixel art-ish, it gave off a little bit more of a watercolory feel, where I feel like the painting here is just a little bit more crude in a way. Let's go here. Yeah, and once again, you have the high detail text and box with pixel art icon. It's just feeling a little bit more mismatched, this game, where it's like I prefer the games to be kind of more consistent within themselves. This is sticking in here. Let me recharge my controller or something. Alright. Rotate this way. No, that one. Okay. Not getting the controls for some reason. Alright, let's go check out this area, and that will be it for this one. Those original little animations have so much character. Even that little idle animation has a lot of life in it, even though it's mostly just color shifting on the actual asset. Alright. I don't know if like they maybe could have saved the backgrounds a bit more if they would have done maybe something a little bit more painterly with them. This feels a bit digitally handled, which was kind of uncommon for, at least for the Mana aesthetic. You would have kind of imagined something a little bit more natural. I mean, it's nice to get the resolution increase, but I'm definitely a fan of the original assets. I would have just preferred those to be in widescreen. So, I mean, I guess that overall, they kept the characters and stuff the same, and that's kind of what shines through, but you just end up with these kind of weirder environments. I wonder what resolution they actually drew them at. Probably 1080p. I feel like when you're remaking a pixel art game, you have some tough decisions to make. You have to choose whether you're going to, what you're going to redo. Are you going to redo anything? Are you going to keep true to the original aesthetic? What is keeping true to the original aesthetic? Is it keeping the pixel art the same and doing more of that? Is it upgrading it? Is it adding frames to it? And I think that, like, this is a big problem with touching a game like this. And once again, with the recent Final Fantasies, there's a big issue with losing their personality of the original. There's a lot of artists have studied kind of the mastery of these classic pixel art games, and um, it's like when you look at something like the Mana series, it's kind of sacred in that regard. Secret of Mana had some of the best pixel art on Super Nintendo, and same with Seiken Densetsu 3. There's just quite a beauty to what they did within the limitations of that device. And with this, with modern devices, the problem is you don't have those limitations anymore. You're not limited by color or by RAM or um, how many sprites you could have in your animation. So you could literally go nuts on any of those fronts. Sometimes the engine will limit you from being able to change the game too much. But I feel like in this regard, they changed it a bit too far. I would have preferred if they just kept the backgrounds and tried to pixel art them up a bit more to keep it all in world. But right now you have this weird mishmash between low resolution assets and the background without anything unifying them. When you see something like Octopath Travelers, it's more unified by the post-processing effects. So they'll have a lot of post-processing effects that unify the 3D environments with the 2D background, the 2D characters. And then it kind of mishmashes more nicely together, but there's really nothing unifying this. So you have a very stark contrast between the characters and the background that you don't feel as much when you play the original. So, I mean, overall, it was a decent effort. It's kind of a weird thing to complain about someone going and repainting all of them, though I do think that they are a little bit just kind of traditionally digital feeling. So, anyways, I think there's more that could have been done here. I'm going to analyze the Final Fantasies next and see what to make of those. Anyways, hope you like. If you do like, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.